Hi, I'm Tim, and that was my phone. It is kind of interesting, I don't know if you realize it, but the reality is I'm making some of these videos for various reasons, mostly for those that actually, I contact using Snapchat and stuff like that. Some different ones, that, believe it or not, they're those who actually don't think I actually talk to anyone. They think I'm totally delusional. But what's funny is if you actually watch TV and realize the reality of what certain ones are saying, and if you listen to some music and realize what they're saying in some of their lyrics, while some of it's true, there are also those that don't like me, so they're spreading all sorts of slanderous rumors and gossip. But it's just kind of one of those deals where I guess I'm one of the most famous, infamous persons ever. It's like I'm a nobody, right? No one knows who I am, right? And I live in poverty. I own my own house and stuff. But the truth is, you know, I get just a little more than $1,000 a month, and I live in poverty. And so it's just kind of interesting how someone that's a nobody and that no one knows who the fuck I am, right? And then sometimes they'll be like, well, why would you cuss? Well, I don't know. How many of you cuss? I don't know if you realize, even Jesus, he's like, you sons of vipers, you venomous snakes, you whitewashed graves. Well, you got to realize back then that was cussing, that was swearing. I don't know if you realize that, but you might want to think about that for a minute. Let it kind of process through your mind, because apparently there are those who can't seem to deal with certain realities. So I said, you might want to actually read your Bible. And if you don't have a Bible, you might want to get one and actually, look at what it says. You might actually, in all honesty, you might want to get multiple versions of the Bible and realize where different translations and versions say stuff differently. And I wonder why it words it differently with some of the different ones. And then what you might want to do is you might want to actually look at the original Hebrew and Greek and find out what it actually means with some of the words. And then eventually, guess what you might figure out about what the Bible actually says compared to what tons of different Christian religions teach about the Bible. But that's just me being honest. But that wasn't what I really wanted to talk to you about, really. It's just something where, if you think about it, most of the time I actually try to have a good sense of humor, right? But when different ones want to constantly do stuff that is, in essence, the same as terrorist activity, right? If you think about it, what's a bully? A bully is someone that tries to cause fear and harm to someone because they feel that, if they can scare someone and bully them, that they'll do what they want. Now, that's the same type of thinking as a terrorist. What do terrorists do? They try and use fear and cause harm to get what they want. It's very, very similar. So you do realize what terrorism means, right? Using terror to try and have control. Well, I'm an American, and I don't know if you realize it, but it's supposed to be somewhere it's like, we don't deal with terrorists. That's why I tell everyone sometimes, I don't know if you realize it, but if you're threatening me, I don't respond well to threats. I don't care what you're threatening. I don't care who you're threatening. If you think I'm going to do what you want me to do just because you're threatening me or someone I care about, you're out of your mind. You got to realize that it's like, have you ever watched a movie where someone's like, do what we tell you to or we'll kill you, and then they do what they want them to do and then they kill them anyways? I'm like, well, if you're a bully and you're a terrorist, as if I can trust you. If you're like, if you do what we tell you to do, then we'll let you live. And I'm like, yeah, and I'm supposed to believe a bitch-ass terrorist like you? Because that's what bullies and terrorists really are. They're bitches and cowards. But they don't want anyone to know that. But if you get them in certain circumstances, you'll find out just how cowardly they really are. And that's what's kind of funny about it. When you realize that tons of rapists and murderers and uh, terrorists and bullies, they're just cowards. You ever like have a bully, where it's like, they're like, give me your lunch money and stuff like that, or I'll beat the shit out of you. No, I ain't gonna give you my money. If you don't do it, I'm gonna boom. No. Well, what are you crying about? You threatened me. You said you were gonna steal my money, and then what? If you go to attack me, and I defend myself because you, if the person is like, oh yeah, well, if you think that I ain't, and it's just like block, punch in the face, and it's like I blocked you because you attacked me. I punched you in the face, as just a little reminder. If I were you, I wouldn't do that. Or if somebody actually punches me in the face, well, I'm just going, look, I'm just trying to, and then they're just like, boom, and then if I throw them across the room, and I'm like, don't do that. And then if they want to go and cry about it, or if they want to lie, because some of them do that too. I don't know if you realize how many little, bullies and stuff will lie about the fact they got their ass kicked. Now, I ain't saying that, I never had something happen where I lost the fight. I had a certain point where there was a guard that was bullying me. And so I punched him in the face because he kept on going, big. And I was like, look, I'm just trying to ask a question. And there wasn't any, I could really ask. Because I was trying to get help for my mental health. And I was just like, hey, yo, I need to ask you a question really quick. Back up. Dude, don't do that. I'm just trying to ask you a question. And after a while, I was like, why do you keep on... And I literally told him, don't do that again. Because I don't care if you're wearing a uniform. He goes, again. And so I just, when he went to, hit my chest again, I just, boom, blocked his arms. He went to do it again, boom. And when he went to do it the third time, I just, boom, boom, punched him right in the face. And, I actually fought him and one other guard, and I was winning. And then, it's like they called the cavalry, and then there was just a ton of guards that were pepper spraying me and punching me and kicking me and using handcuffs, digging into my shoulders and stuff like that, trying to get me to the ground. And then I was like, I calmed down after a bit, and I was like, hey, look, dude is being an asshole and stuff. And then what's funny is they're like, oh, is that all the fight you got left? No, I, why, so when you realize by the time it was done, and stuff, they kept on going, oh, is that all the fight you have left? No, I'm just trying to be nice to you idiots. That dude got me mad, and now you're trying to provoke me even more. What's wrong with you? And, even though, I was still, fighting somewhat, you got to realize the reality was there was no need for it, really. But, after a while, they were just like, this has never happened before. What do we do? Well, maybe if you stopped acting like a bunch of bullies, for one, and secondly, it's like, I don't know if you realize it, but I was covered with blood and bruises and all that. And I've never denied the fact that it's like, I had a bit of a limp. I'd hurt my ankle, my wrist had gotten, where it's like, I don't think it was broken, but it was definitely hurting. I had no feeling in this part of my hand. From my middle finger all the way over to my thumb, I had no feeling at all. Like, I could, go, like, there was no feeling for, 2 months. I could move my hand, but I couldn't feel any feeling there for 2 months after that. And I was, they pepper sprayed my eyes and rubbed the pepper spray into my eyes to the point my eyelids were literally bleeding. So I can admit, what happened there and stuff, and it doesn't bother me. But when you realize there's others who'd be like, if they had what happened to me happen to them, they'd be like, oh yeah, and I kicked all their asses, and you should, and it's like, but that would have been a lie. If I said, something other than what actually happened, and then what happens if they all were like, well, actually, We even have video of what actually happened. So that's what's funny when you realize most of the time, most bullies, most rapists, most murderers and terrorists, they're just bitches. Because the difference is, like, when that happened to me, I was just like, yeah, I didn't care. I didn't make a big deal out of it, really. But then, if you do certain stuff, like, all you have to do is just call them a name sometimes, and they can't deal with it. Then they want to go cry to mommy. And they want to lie about what happened. And see, that's part of the problem with hater mentality. There's tons of different ones that are haters. They're haters, and it's because they're jealous, basically. That's all it is. If you realize the reality is that if someone's a hater, first of all, why do they have all that time to hate on someone in the first place? What is it they're doing with their lives? Do they even have a life? Do they have any friends? Do they have any value whatsoever? And why is it they feel the need to try and make someone else feel miserable? You can't tell me it's because they have a great life, because if they really had a great life, they wouldn't give a shit about trying to make someone else's life miserable. If the only way you can make yourself feel better about yourself is trying to make someone else feel completely miserable, I'd say you probably have one of the worst lives ever. You could have tons of friends, but I'm guessing it's probably only because you got money. What happens if you don't have any money? See, that's what's interesting. I don't know if you realize it, but I was homeless and I had friends. I had no money and I had friends. Right now I have a house. I have cable, internet, I purchase my own food. I don't have a ton of friends. Why? Is it because of money? No, it has nothing to do with how much money I have. It's that certain ones are just haters and decided they were going to start some campaign to try and ruin my life. And what's really irritating some of them is the fact that I finally got to the point where I'm like, look, now I'm going to start telling the truth. I haven't even begun to fight yet. I'm just going to start telling the truth. And I'm going to allow different ones the opportunity to actually look at the reality, to look at actual facts and evidence. And that's why some of them are mad, because they got that bully mentality, that terrorist mentality. They wanted to make my life miserable, and now they're mad because I'm helping everyone realize what the truth is. I mean, you got to think about it for a minute, all right? It's kind of like, imagine someone saying that, hey, those Muslims, they got that Sharia law. That means they hate women because, it allows for rape and murder of women. And then imagine that person bragging about raping women and killing women and children and, separating families and all that. And then wouldn't you just be like, wait a minute, I thought you said something about, Sharia law. But basically what you're doing is you're practicing Sharia law. How can you claim that you're different from them if what you're doing is harming women and children? And see, that's kind of what's funny about some of the bullies. And when you start realizing they're terrorists, when they have hater mentality, when they have bully mentality, it's the same as terrorism. And how far some of them go, to the point where they will rape and murder, and for some reason they don't realize they're a terrorist. That they're trying to use fear and propaganda just like the Nazis did. And then they get mad if I compare them to Nazis. Why would you get mad if I compare you to Nazis, if I compare you to terrorists? And then when you realize there are those that don't get mad because of the fact they don't feel like they're doing the kind of stuff I'm talking about. So if you're mad because I'm like, you do realize that kind of stuff, that's terrorism. That's what the Nazis did and stuff. And then what? You're mad at me? I'm guessing the reason you're mad at me is because you're one of the ones that has that hater mentality and that you talk and act like terrorists and Nazis. And that's why you're mad at me. You're mad at me for the same reason as a bully gets mad and wants to go to cry to their mama, For what reason? Because someone decided to defend themselves. It's just kind of one of those deals where when you start looking at the big picture, right? Now, I like to have a good sense of humor about stuff most of the time. But you got to realize what's happened with my life. And it doesn't mean I can't laugh. That's why I have some different videos I make. But, think about it. I have a mental health disability. And it's difficult for me to deal with certain stuff as it is. So when certain ones want to continually harass me, mock me, make fun of me, spread lies, rumors, and gossip, that's just a bunch of slander. When they want to falsely accuse me, when they want to destroy my relationships, my friendships, it's like, you do realize you're fortunate that I haven't just gone and gotten a gun someplace and killed a bunch of you idiots, right? I mean, you want to know why someone does something like what they do at Sandy Hook? Because they treat someone like me the way that they're treating me, except for there's a certain difference. The difference is that I ain't, the type of person who doesn't recognize my own mental health for what it is. And because I'm smart enough to recognize my mental health for what it is, while different ones are constantly trying to, get me to go a certain direction, which is actually harmful to myself and possibly tons of others, including them. I mean, can you imagine the kind of mentality it is for someone to try and provoke someone like me to a point of violence, and then I'm going, is it that you're suicidal? I mean, that's basically what it is when you realize they have hater mentality and they're suicidal. And that it's something where it's like, if I didn't have the kind of knowledge I have about mental health, and if I hadn't done a ton of research, and if I didn't recognize, certain kinds of stuff with myself, then guess what I probably would have already done. So aren't you glad that, I actually recognize my mental health for what it is? It's just kind of one of those deals where it's like America has a war on terrorism. There's terrorists living in America. When you realize the reality of what terrorism is, and the worst part is, they're doing it to fellow Americans. I mean, do you realize the kind of mentality it is for certain ones to say some what they say about Muslims and different ones in Iran and Iraq and all that kind of stuff, while they themselves are murdering and raping American citizens? But I guess they feel it's alright because they live in America. Well, that's kind of odd, don't you think? Why would you feel that it's wrong for certain ones in other countries to have a certain kind of mentality, but it's okay for you to have that kind of mentality? Why do you think it's okay for you to hate, manipulate, rape, and murder? And then you act as if there's something wrong with Muslims? And then you got to realize there's different kinds of Muslims. There's the extremists, right? And the extremist Muslims, they're the same in essence, as terrorists, right, and Nazis and white supremacists and, well, just about anyone who would view themselves as better than anyone else. And the problem with that is when they get to that extremist viewpoint, to the point where they're willing to kill others and rape others and harm others, it can't be tolerated. And the crazy part of it too is when I talk to some different ones about stuff with America and stuff somewhat, and they're like, well, you know, you gotta have freedoms for everybody. That includes all Americans. You know, so you can't just have to, really. So you expect tolerance for all Americans. But while you're saying that, you want to go to a different country and tell them what to do and kill them and then claim, well, you know, we had to do it. Why? Well, because they were harming innocents and they were raping women and children. And it's like, oh, you mean what it is that you were doing. See, that's something that everyone's got to realize. You can't condemn someone else for doing what it is that you do. And what's crazy about it too is some act as if I'm a rapist and a murderer, and they're like, oh, you know, like when I said it, they'd be like, oh, gotcha, we got no, because I ain't a rapist and I ain't a murderer, you idiots. Just because you make up some bullshit story doesn't make it true. You could even, you know, edit video and audio to make it sound a certain way, but it doesn't make it true. So, you know, realize I actually have a reason that I can say what I say. There's a reason why I can do what I do. And when certain ones do stuff, they're like, oh, he hates himself. No, I like myself. I just don't like you. Because you have a hater, bully mentality that's basically turned you into traitors. Because when you realize what you're doing is you're harming American citizens. You're trying to destroy America, and that is something that, you know, is actually like a really bad crime. I don't know if you realize that, but when you're harming Americans and you're trying to destroy the American government, it is a crime. Like, you know, it's called treason. So it's just kind of odd that there are those who don't seem to recognize that what they're doing is terrorism, treason, and you just got to wonder how it's possible that they don't recognize that. And like I said, I like having a sense of humor. I enjoy, you know, having friends that I can visit with and have fun with, watch movies with, play games with, go camping with, go fishing with, hunting, going out, you know, in the water, you know. Going to the zoo, going shopping, going to restaurants, working, all sorts of different stuff. So when different ones want to isolate me, and the crazy part is when different ones want to make up a bunch of bullshit stories about me, and they're like, he isn't even working. What a lazy bum. I filled tons of applications trying to get work. I wouldn't call that lazy. If you refuse to hire me and you try to convince everyone else to keep from hiring me, it doesn't mean I'm lazy. You know, it's like certain ones can't seem to figure out some of those differences. You'd think at a certain point that different ones would actually think about what it is they're saying and what it is that they're doing. And instead, when you realize they're so caught up in their delusion that they can't accept reality for what it is. They can't accept actual fact. So it's just kind of one of those deals, like I said, you know. I like having a sense of humor. I like having friends. I like enjoying my life. I ain't isolated because I'm isolating myself. I'm isolated because certain ones are trying to prevent others from getting anywhere near me. And they're using lies and they're using manipulation and they're, you know, it's something where they've actually edited photos and audio and stuff to make it sound a certain way, even if it isn't even close to the reality of what actually happened. And that is actually a crime. Because of the fact that it's actually caused damage and harm to me and to others. It is terrorism. And I don't hate myself, I like myself. And I ain't trying to isolate myself. And I ain't lazy. And that's the reason why I ain't laughing about the seriousness of what I'm talking about. But I want you to realize that some of what I'm talking about, you know, so that it isn't that I don't want to have a sense of humor. It isn't that I don't want to enjoy my life. I'm just trying to help you realize certain realities. Then maybe, just maybe, you'll wake up to reality. Or maybe you can help others wake up to reality. And once you realize what the truth is, and like I said, you know, it's great when sometimes I don't even have to finish a sentence because in your own mind you already know what the answer is. You realize what the reality is. And you start to think for yourself. And then maybe you can break out of some delusion you might have as to what you think of me and how you view me. Because you'll think for yourself instead of letting someone else think for you. Instead of letting them tell you what to think, you might actually do some research and look at actual facts. You might start asking questions. And that is a sign of intelligence. And that's what they fear most. Real intelligence. And anyone that can actually think for themselves. Because they want to treat you like cattle. They don't want to treat you like a person. And if you start to think for yourself, they feel like they've lost control. And once they feel like they're losing control, they start to panic. And when they start to panic, they do to others what they tried doing to me. The only difference was, I knew exactly what it was they were trying to do. Even when they tried to kill me. Fortunately for me, even though I have a mental health disability, I'm actually really smart. I ain't trying to brag, I'm just telling you the fact, because if it wasn't for that, I'd already be dead. And I want to make sure that what's happened to me doesn't happen to anyone else. You want to talk about stopping terrorism? You need to start at home. Look at yourself in the mirror. Ask yourself, do you believe in tolerance, freedom, equality? Are you one of us? Maybe you feel like you have to control others using lies and manipulation and fear. And then you're one of them. You got to realize I'm a Christian. I'm a real Christian. And it isn't delusional to believe in God. It's just kind of interesting, like I said, if you start looking at all the facts, what is it you might start to realize? So, me personally, all I really want to do is just live my life. I wanted to get married and have a family, but I guess that was just too much to ask. So it's something where it's like, when you realize the reality, why do I do what I do? I could have a family. I could be working. I could have all sorts of distractions that, would keep me from really having to think about any other kind of stuff. However, when it gets to a point where it's like, I don't have a family, I don't have a bunch of friends, I ain't working, and it isn't because, that was my choice. It's that there are those who, for some reason, seem to think they're better than me. And I ain't the only person who's suffered because of idiots like that. And I could have just, curled up and cried. But I didn't. I decided that I was going to actually do something about it. That doesn't mean I haven't shed any tears. Because I'm a man and I'm human. I have actual emotions. But guess what else it means? When someone says, I'm just one man, what can one man do? I'm showing you exactly what one man can do. Because you have to realize, I was just one man. And now, there's a ton of others who have woken up to reality. So it isn't just me anymore. Even if I'm here at home alone, I ain't really alone. Something you might want to think about.